So the other day I was out shooting a video with the Avata about flying in extremely cold temperature. So if you haven't checked out that video, I highly suggest that you do so, because in that video I give you 10 tips on how to optimize your flights with your Avata and how to get a longer flight time in extreme temperatures. So links will be down in the description below. So when I was out making this video, I had the smallest crash that I've ever had. I wouldn't even categorize it as a crash because I was standing still, hovering, and I was descending or just pushing it a little bit forward. And what happened was that the Avata, or one of the props here, got caught in some branches, and then it just flipped over. And the funny thing is that when I went to pick up my Avata, the battery had almost ejected from that tiny crash. But I didn't think much of it, so what I did was to replace the battery. I popped in a new battery and then continued on with my flight. Now, if you remember, I also mentioned in my earlier videos that my cage got quite some damage to it when I hit a branch, and the Avata and the battery bounced off a rock and then the asphalt and ended up on the other side of the road, where the Avata slightly missed a small pool of water, but the battery didn't. And this is a huge problem with the Avata, if you ask me. When the battery ejects on impact, not only does it make it harder to find your Avata because you can't really beep it and you can't really see through the goggles because everything turns black, but it also prevents you from doing that turtle flip if you crash in a place you can't really get to. So using a battery strap like Velcro, which you can just slide through the cage here and place on the back of your Avata, so you hold it in place, or something like a 3D printed mount which you mount on the back of your Avata, is, it's a must-have if you are going a little bit risky with your Avata. Now, I strongly recommend that you check out Original Dobo's 3D printed straps. There will be a link down in the description below, and you can purchase them off of Etsy. So link down below if you need a battery strap for your Avata. Now, when I got home, I took a further look at the battery locks on the cage itself, and actually I realized that the cage was actually in pretty bad shape, and I found out that, it's best to replace this immediately before I head out for my next flight. So if we take a look at the battery here, you can see that it has 2 pins, or whatever you call it, on each side, along with 2 battery buckles which holds the battery in place. The pins, or the additional safety locks, slides into this part right here, which holds the battery in place and prevents any movement from side to side. So without these locks, the tiniest bump could actually loosen the battery buckle on either side, which is actually pretty soft out of the box. And this would throw your battery out of the cage if you have a slightly larger crash. Now, looking at my old cage here, which I recently changed for the new cage right before I recorded this video, we can see that we have some damage to the cage here. So if we take a look at the inside of the cage here, most of the upper parts of the plastic is gone, and this is not good. And it's most likely what caused my battery to almost eject on a very small impact. Now imagine if this happened somewhere else where, at a greater speed, maybe there was some people nearby or some buildings that you don't want to hit, and if you had a tiny impact with a damaged cage, that would most definitely kick out your battery and would potentially cause some real damage. So you definitely want to change your cage if you have something similar to what I'm seeing in my cage. It's really bad, and it's not actually safe if you're gonna risk it. If you're just gonna fly with a motion controller, have some fun, I wouldn't think much of it because it holds in place. But if you're really gonna push it with the FPV controller and you go full speed and you wanna do some tiny freestyle in there and go through buildings and you really wanna risk it, a battery strap is a must. Now you can see for yourself here what happens when this lock point is gone or damaged. Now, the plastic here is also pretty thin, so any crash that ejects your battery has a greater chance of breaking this off. So if you have the Avata and you already experienced a crash, you would definitely check this if you're not using a battery strap to hold your battery in place. But I highly recommend that you add a battery strap, and the easiest one to get hold of is Velcro. You might have some Velcro laying around. You can just use some scissors and cut away, and you just take it around the cage here and around the battery, and that is actually enough to hold it in place and make it more secure if you have a severe crash. Yeah, I replaced my cage here, and I also have some brand new propellers, which I'm really excited to test out. So if you are brand new to this and you don't know how to change the propellers, you don't know how to change the cage, so I'm gonna run you through the process of how you change the cage or the upper frame right now. But if you already know how to change this, then I appreciate that you stopped by checking out this video, and you're now free to click on the video up there if you want to move over to that video, or stick along until the end. Now, as for the replacement of the upper frame, it's only $19, and you'll also get a brand new set of screws along with it. So I just replaced my damaged cage here and added some new propellers as well, which looks awesome with the black and dark gray colors of the Avata. So replacing the cage on the Avata is extremely simple and extremely fast actually, so I'm gonna keep this as short as possible. Now, since I'm adding some new propellers as well, which don't have the indication markers as the original propellers from DJI, I start by replacing one at a time so I don't mix up which is going where. You can easily tell which props are going where by holding it over the original propeller you just removed. Now, each propeller has 2 screws, so the replacement is pretty simple and there's not much wrong you can do. So now that we have the new props in place, we have 2 screws on the front side of the frame, one on each side. Since these screws are different from the other screws we're gonna remove, we can start with these 2. Now, flipping the Avata upside down, we have 6 screws we need to remove in order to replace and remove the cage. Now, if you bought your Avata in a combo with either the goggles version 2 or the goggles 2, you should have an Allen key which was included, which you can also use to remove the screws. The screws we need to remove is the 2 on the back and the 4 in the front. When these screws are removed, you can carefully pull the cage until it pops off, and you can now replace this with a new cage. Now, on the front of the prop guards, you have 2 holes on each side, so make sure that the cage aligns properly before you push it down. Now, the last step is going to be to fasten the cage with the included screws, or you can reuse the older screws. It's a pretty simple process to change the cage and the propellers of your Avata, and I now have my Avata with some brand new propellers and a brand new cage. And I'm really excited to test these propellers out to see if there is any difference in performance, if the performance is improved, or if it's just, for aesthetics. But it looks so darn good. What do you think of the look of this now? Let me know in the comment section below, or should I go for the orange props? I actually like these a little bit more than the orange. It pops a little bit more, and I'm quite happy with the look of the propellers. Only thing left now is to check the performance of them and see if it does anything better or worse. Just have to wait and see. Now, as for the latest firmware update, which I also talked about recently, I haven't really noticed any bad things with the Avata. The only thing is, of course, the 30 FPS recording, which is causing some stutter in your goggles because of latency. But other than that, the 10-bit color, it's amazing. It is really, really good. And the Avata runs smoothly, and the added safety for the prop wash is just, it makes a huge difference, especially for those wanting to push the Avata to its limits. And above that, having that additional bandage on the Avata really, really helps. And I think that is going to be really good for new pilots going into manual mode for the first time, to have that additional safety which DJI now has added to the Avata, which clicks it into normal mode as soon as it has a prop washout or drifts or tries to, if the wind is trying to flip it upside down, you know, it's going to kick in right away and prevent prop washout and prevent you from damaging your brand new Avata. Now, if you have any questions related to the Avata, or if I missed anything, let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you found any value in today's video, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and also click that like button and keep the notifications on so you don't miss out on the future videos. That's going to be everything for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.